In a city that never seemed to sleep, there was a restaurant that many people loved to visit. It was not the biggest restaurant, but it was special. The walls were painted warm colors, and soft lights hung from the ceiling, making the whole place feel cozy. Every night, a piano player would sit in the corner and fill the room with music. People came there not just to eat, but to listen to the beautiful songs. This restaurant had many workers. Some cooked food in the kitchen, others brought plates to the tables. Among these workers was a young woman who worked as a waitress. She moved quietly and carefully between the tables. Her skin was dark and shone like polished wood. She always wore a smile, even when the day was long or the customers were rude. She had been working there for a few years. She knew the customers well and always tried to make them feel welcome. The waitress was not just someone who took orders. She loved music. When the piano played, her eyes would close for a moment, and she would imagine herself in another world. She had never told anyone she could play the piano because she did not have a chance to show it. She kept her talent inside like a secret treasure. One evening, the restaurant was busy. People filled the tables and talked quietly while waiting for their food. The piano was playing soft music as usual. The waitress was carrying a tray full of drinks when a man sitting near the piano called her over. The man was tall and wore expensive clothes. He looked important and like he was used to getting what he wanted. The man smiled, but in a way that did not feel friendly. He told her to come closer and said loudly enough for others to hear. He said it would be funny if she played the piano. His voice was sharp and full of a kind of joke that was not kind at all. Everyone turned to look at the waitress. Some faces showed surprise. Some were curious. The waitress felt her heart beat faster. She did not want to play. This was not her job, and she did not like being made fun of. But she also did not want to cause trouble or make the customers angry, so she slowly walked to the piano. Her hands trembled a little as she sat down on the bench. The restaurant went quiet. The soft sounds of talking stopped. The clinking of glasses stopped. All eyes were on her. The man who had asked her to play was still smiling, waiting to see if she would fail or make a mistake. For a moment, the waitress felt like the whole room was holding its breath. She looked at the piano keys. They were black and white, shining under the lights. She thought about all the times she had wanted to play. She remembered the songs she had practiced quietly at home. Then she placed her fingers on the keys. At first, the notes were soft and slow. The music was gentle, like a quiet river flowing through the night. As she played more, the music grew stronger and deeper. It told a story without words. It spoke of pain, hope, and pride. People in the restaurant listened closely. Some closed their eyes. Some sat very still. The man who had forced her to play stopped smiling. He looked surprised and then silent. The music was not a joke. It was a message. The waitress did not say anything. She let the music speak for her. No one clapped right away. The room was too quiet to make any sound. But everyone knew that something important had just happened. Something that would change the way they saw her. When the last note faded, the waitress stood up and walked back to her job. Her head was held high. She had not only played the piano, she had shown everyone who she really was. And the night was never quite the same again. After the last note gently faded away, a deep quiet filled the restaurant. It was not the usual quiet between songs or when people were thinking about what to say next. This quiet was heavy and full of feelings that no one could easily explain. Everyone sat still, as if the music had stopped time for a moment. The soft hum of conversation was gone, and the air felt thick with surprise. The waitress had returned to her place behind the counter. Her hands were no longer trembling, but her heart was still beating fast. She tried to act like nothing had happened, like she was just doing her usual work. She wiped a glass and placed it carefully on the shelf, but her mind was far away, still wrapped in the music she had just played. The man who had asked her to play looked down at his hands. The confident smile was gone. His eyes moved slowly around the room, and he saw that others were watching him too. Some of the customers were nodding their heads slightly, their faces showing respect. Others were looking at the waitress with new eyes. One older woman at a nearby table wiped her tears quietly. Her hands shook a little, and she whispered to her friend that the music was beautiful and full of life. A young boy sitting with his parents leaned closer to the piano and smiled. It was like the music had touched something deep inside everyone in the room. No one expected the waitress to be able to play so well. She had always been quiet, keeping to herself while she worked. But now everyone could see that she had a special gift. Her fingers moved on the keys with skill and feeling. She did not just play notes. She told stories with each sound. The man's face was hard to read. He looked embarrassed but also thoughtful. Maybe he had never thought about the waitress as a person with dreams and talents. Maybe he had only seen her as someone to serve him and others like him. Now he realized how wrong he was. Slowly, a few people began to clap. The clapping was soft at first but grew louder. Soon the whole restaurant was clapping for the waitress. Some stood up, smiling and cheering quietly. It was a celebration, not just for the music, but for the courage she had shown. The waitress smiled a little this time. It was a small smile, but it was full of pride and strength. She felt like the music had given her a voice when words were not enough. She had turned what could have been a joke into something powerful. The restaurant manager came over and put a hand on her shoulder. He said, "That was amazing. You have a gift that should be shared." The waitress nodded but did not say much. She was still surprised by how everything had changed so quickly. Other workers came closer to congratulate her. They told her how proud they were. Some customers even asked if she would play again sometime, not as a joke, but because they wanted to hear more. The man who had asked her to play finally spoke. His voice was softer now. He said, "I did not mean to be rude. I did not know you could play like that." The waitress looked at him but did not answer. She wanted to believe he was sincere, but her heart was still cautious. Outside the restaurant, the city lights flickered like stars. People who had heard the story started talking about it. Some shared what they saw on their phones. The story of the waitress who played the piano when asked as a joke was spreading. That night, the waitress went home with a feeling she had never felt before. She was not just someone who served food anymore. She was a person with a voice, with power, and with a story that others wanted to hear. She sat by the window in her small apartment and thought about what had happened. She thought about all the times she had hidden her music, and how tonight, her courage had changed everything. The music had done more than fill the restaurant with sound. It had opened hearts and minds. It had shown that no one should be judged by the color of their skin or the job they do. Everyone had a story, and everyone deserved respect. The waitress made a promise to herself that night. She would never let anyone silence her again. She would play her music whenever she could. Not to please others, but to share who she was inside. And the city, full of noise and rush, had become a little quieter, a little kinder because of her. The night after the piano performance, the restaurant was quieter than usual. People still talked about what had happened. Some said the music was the most beautiful thing they had heard in a long time. Others said it made them think about things they had never thought about before. The waitress was at work again, moving between tables with her usual calm. But something inside her had changed forever. No one spoke much about the man who had asked her to play as a joke. He sat in a corner, staring at his empty glass. His face looked serious and a little sad. He seemed to be thinking deeply about the way he had treated her. The proud smile he had worn before was gone. Instead, there was a quiet feeling of regret. The waitress did not want to make a big scene. She knew that some people still saw her only as someone who worked behind a counter. But she also knew that her music had shown a different side of her, one that no one could take away. She moved with quiet confidence now, carrying herself like someone who had been through something important. As she worked, she noticed how some customers looked at her differently. They smiled in a way that said they saw her as a person with talent and dignity. Some even asked her questions about music or told her stories about songs they loved. The restaurant, once just a place to eat, was becoming a place where people began to understand each other better. The manager of the restaurant decided to hold a small meeting with the staff. He wanted to talk about respect and kindness. He said that everyone who worked there should feel safe and valued. He reminded them that bullying, teasing, or making someone feel less because of their skin color or job was not allowed. This meeting was important. It was the first time many workers spoke openly about their feelings. Some shared stories about times they had been treated unfairly. The manager listened carefully and promised to do more to protect his team. The waitress sat quietly during the meeting, feeling proud that her courage had helped start this conversation. Meanwhile, the man who had forced her to play began to change. He visited the restaurant more often, but not just to eat. He came to listen. He stayed longer after his meals to talk with the staff and learn about their lives. People noticed that he was kinder and more respectful. Some said he was trying to understand what it really meant to treat others with dignity. One day, the waitress was cleaning tables when the man approached her. He looked nervous but spoke sincerely. He said, "I want to apologize for how I treated you that night. It was wrong, and I am sorry." The waitress looked at him. She saw honesty in his eyes. After a moment, she nodded and said, "Thank you for saying that." That simple exchange was a turning point. It showed that people could learn and grow if they were willing to listen. It also gave hope to others who had faced bullying or unfair treatment. The restaurant was no longer just a place to eat or hear music. It had become a place where respect and kindness were starting to grow like seeds in the soil. Outside the restaurant, stories about the waitress and her music spread even more. On social media, people shared videos and messages about standing against bullying and racism. The story inspired many to speak up when they saw unfairness. It reminded everyone that no one should be made to feel less because of who they are. At home, the waitress practiced her music every night. She played with new energy, knowing that her music could touch hearts and change minds. She thought about the people she had met and the lessons she had learned. She wanted to use her talent not just for herself, but to help others find their voices too. In school, some children talked about the story. Teachers used it to teach about respect and understanding. It became a lesson about kindness that reached far beyond the walls of the restaurant. As weeks passed, the restaurant added something new. A small sign near the entrance said, "This is a place where everyone is welcome and respected." It was a simple message, but it meant a lot. It told customers and workers alike that bullying and unfairness would not be tolerated here. The waitress looked at the sign one day and smiled. She knew that change was happening slowly but surely. Her music had started it all, but it was the courage of many people who kept it alive. The silent lesson of that night was clear. Respect and kindness were powerful. They could change people's hearts and create a world where everyone could shine. And in the quiet moments, when the piano played softly again, the restaurant was filled not just with music, but with hope. After the night of the piano performance, the story of the waitress who was asked to play as a joke began to spread far beyond the walls of the restaurant. At first, it was just a few whispers among customers and workers, but soon, more and more people heard about it. Some shared their thoughts on social media. They posted videos and pictures, telling others about the beautiful music and the courage of the waitress. The story touched many hearts. People everywhere began to talk about respect and kindness. They talked about how important it was to stop bullying, especially when it was because of the color of someone's skin or because of the job they did. It made people think about the small things they did every day and how those things could hurt others without them even knowing. News reporters came to the restaurant to hear the story directly. They wanted to know how one moment of courage had changed so many lives. The waitress was nervous at first, but she told her story honestly and simply. She spoke about the music, about how she had never thought she would play in front of so many people, and about how important it was to treat everyone with respect. Many people admired her for speaking out. They said her story was a lesson for the whole city and maybe the whole country. Some schools invited her to talk to children about bullying and courage. She became a symbol of hope and strength. At the restaurant, things began to change too. The manager started new training for all the workers and customers. The training helped people understand how hurtful bullying could be and how everyone had the right to be treated fairly and kindly. The manager said it was important to create a safe place where all workers could do their jobs without fear. The man who had forced the waitress to play as a joke continued to change. He spent more time learning about other people's stories. He visited places where people talked about their experiences with bullying and unfair treatment. Slowly, he began to understand the pain that many people felt every day. One afternoon, the man stood in front of a small group of restaurant workers and said he wanted to say sorry again. He told them that he had been wrong to make the waitress feel like she was a joke. He said he was grateful for the lesson she had given him and that he wanted to help make the restaurant a better place for everyone. Many workers smiled and nodded. Some said it was hard to forgive, but they appreciated his effort to change. The man promised to keep learning and to speak out against bullying whenever he saw it. Outside the restaurant, the story inspired many others. Community leaders held meetings to talk about stopping bullying and racism. They invited people from all walks of life to join and share their stories. The conversations were sometimes hard because people talked about things that hurt deeply. But they also brought hope because people listened and wanted to make things better. The waitress continued to play the piano, but now she played for different reasons. She played to share her feelings and to bring people together. Sometimes she played quietly for herself, but often she played in special events where people came to celebrate culture and friendship. One day, the restaurant held a special evening to honor Black culture and music. The waitress was the star of the night. She played songs that told stories of history, struggle, and joy. People clapped and cheered, not because they were surprised anymore, but because they understood and appreciated the music deeply. The man who had once made her play as a joke was there too. This time, he was not a bystander or a bully. He was an ally and a friend. He stood and applauded, proud of the woman who had taught him so much. The event was not just about music. It was about coming together and standing against bullying. It was about seeing each other as equals and honoring everyone's stories. The restaurant became a place where respect was the foundation of every meal and every conversation. Word of the event spread quickly. Other restaurants and businesses started their own programs to stop bullying and celebrate diversity. The movement grew stronger, touching many parts of the city and beyond. The waitress watched all of this with a quiet smile. She remembered the night when she was asked to play the piano as a joke. At that moment, she never imagined her music would lead to something so big. She knew the journey was not over, but she felt hopeful. She believed that small acts of courage could create big changes. She knew that when people listened and cared, the world could become a kinder place. The ripple from that night was still moving outward, touching hearts and changing lives one person at a time. And in the middle of it all, the piano music kept playing, carrying messages of hope, strength, and respect. Many months had passed since that unforgettable night when the waitress played the piano at the restaurant. The city had changed in small but meaningful ways. People were kinder to each other. They listened more and judged less. The restaurant was no longer just a place to eat. It had become a place where stories were shared and respect was the rule. The waitress had grown in ways she never expected. Her music was no longer hidden. She played often, not because someone asked her to, but because she wanted to. She felt free to express herself and to share her heart with others. When her fingers touched the keys, the music told stories of hope, courage, and love. One evening, the restaurant was filled with people from all over the community. They had come to celebrate a special event created by the waitress. It was a night to honor Black culture, music, and the power of standing together against bullying and hate. The air was full of excitement and joy. The waitress sat at the piano, calm and confident. She looked around at the smiling faces. Among the crowd was the man who had once forced her to play as a joke. He was no longer a stranger or a bully. He was a friend and a supporter. He clapped the loudest when the music began, showing how far he had come. As she played, the room filled with sound that moved through every heart. The music was full of history and dreams. It spoke of struggles overcome and of brighter days ahead. People felt connected not just to the music but to each other. They knew that respect and kindness could create something beautiful. After the music ended, the waitress stood and spoke to the crowd. Her voice was strong but gentle. She thanked everyone for being part of the journey and reminded them that the fight against bullying and unfairness was not over. She said that each person had the power to make a difference by choosing kindness every day. She asked the people to remember her story, not just as a moment in a restaurant, but as a lesson for life. She said that no one should ever be made to feel less because of who they are or where they come from. Everyone deserves respect and the chance to shine. The crowd listened quietly, feeling the truth in her words. They knew that change started with each person and that together, they could build a world where everyone belonged. Before the night ended, the waitress shared something special. She asked everyone to join her in a promise to stand up when they see bullying. She said that silence lets hurt continue, but speaking out can bring hope and healing. The restaurant became a place of celebration and promise that night. People left with hearts full of hope and a commitment to kindness. Now, if you have listened to this story and felt its message, you can be part of the change too. You can stand against bullying in your own life. You can speak up when you see someone treated unfairly. You can choose to be kind and respectful to everyone you meet. If you want to hear more stories like this and help spread the message of hope and courage, please like this story and subscribe to the channel. Sharing stories like this helps us all learn and grow. Together, we can make the world a place where no one is bullied because of their skin color, their job, or anything that makes them different. We can make sure every voice is heard and every person is valued. Remember, the music started with a brave choice to play, and it grew into a movement that touched many hearts. You have that same power to make a difference. Thank you for being part of this journey. Keep kindness alive in your words and actions. Keep listening and sharing stories that bring us together. And never forget that respect is the greatest song we can play for the world.